where's the line? It should all be allowed. Is you have to, is jagged of a pill of is that is to swallow. That was an Alanis Morissette reference, but it's really is just necessary in my opinion. You have to have it. You can ignore it, you can discern it, whatever. But yeah, I'm in total agreement with you, man. How about we just start the episode? We could just have that be the thing. Welcome to the Theory of Conspiracy. We're talking about the upcoming TikTok ban. We're just talking about freedom of speech and stuff of that nature. We kind of, this one's just, I think we're going to release this before some of the other ones just because it's so topical and I think important. You know what I mean? What are your thoughts with the TikTok ban?
I think so. I think with the information coming out now, or this coming back to the forefront, this conversation, this was something talked about during Trump's years. He was talking about banning it, as it was this, Chinese company, and I had made mention on a previous episode how I was dealing with, was working at an IT hardware company, and we had just partnered up with a Chinese hardware distributor, Huawei, who's huge outside of this country as far as
Right.
they make more phones than Apple does, and they had like a gold-plated phone that was pretty cool and all this stuff there. And then him being able to put a hold on that, and I can't say one way or the other, it's just what happened, and that had stopped that basically department from existing because, hey, we can't do business in the US. So I'd seen that first, back then. Now it's coming to the forefront again, where Biden's now coming around.
Ironically, like Trump is the one that's coming out and saying, no, we shouldn't do this. Now, I think that's just grandstanding at this point, but it's kind of comical that now he's the one kind of, saying, oh, we shouldn't have a TikTok ban and stuff like that. But anyway, I'm starting to interrupt. I just wanted to point that out,
Oh, no, you're fine. And there's talks behind, what's the reasoning for that? Is it still because of, the Chinese connection? Is it something having to do with money, perhaps, which seems to be a big sort of reasoning for doing one thing or the other there? So basically just what are some of the theories there? But one thing that I think we're going to hit on is sort of what we've seen with that information and this whole truth is my reality, perception of my reality, and a reason why we think the TikTok ban may be happening. And it could be with not only being big with the kids, but also the information they're getting from TikTok as opposed to, say, Facebook or Instagram or from the Meta.
Mhm.
And one thing that I would say is that, from talking to friends who are high school teachers, they've told me that, hey, a lot of the kids are very pro-Palestine, very anti-Israel. And it's interesting, like, okay, like that is what it is, but where would they be getting that information from? Like, how do you become that way? I know, if you were to look at a lot of the mainstream media, I would say it's very pro-Israel for the most part, or Hollywood it tends to be pro-Israel. But it seems a
Well,
lot of information is from TikTok as far as.
let's let's break that down just for a second. Is
Mm.
social media is becoming the mainstream media, and that's where the older generations are. They're like, oh shit, we don't have the hands on the controls anymore. Like the people have the voice now. You know what I mean? Because most of these kids, they don't watch. Like I will maybe sit down with my girlfriend's kids and watch, like, when we were younger and we had sleepovers, for instance. Back in my day, there was you rented 3 DVDs. Maybe you rewatched the coolest one twice, and then the rest of the time you're playing video games, or you're fucking around, or doing whatever you're doing. These kids are on their phones all the time, or they're on games, or they're on Stitch, or whatever. It's all social media platforms, and the companies that are surviving, the things that are the mainstream media now is becoming, you know little sound clips and little short videos, and 10-minute YouTubes, and 3-minute TikToks, and a lot of the information is coming that way. So the mainstream media is shifting. Just to dissect that just for a second, to put it in perspective for people that, like ourselves, maybe don't really. not how we get all. We're like a foot in both camps. We get half our media from news, and we get the other half, from social media. But I
Yeah.
just wanted to throw that out there.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. So the power of Hollywood is definitely diminishing with this next generation as far as being shaped by this big movie that yeah, the video store or going to the movie theater. Even I mean we've seen the power of newspapers definitely decline, but that was a thing that you would get your newspaper delivered, you read it, and that's how you get your news and know what's going on in the world. The CNN, the Fox News is they're not as big
No,
with the younger generation who are going
they
to
know they know their bullshit.
right, and they want someone to break it down for them, so they'll go to a TikToker they trust to say, "Hey, well, tell me about Ukraine in 30 seconds or more," and may, depending on what that person is pushing, may get a vastly different, view of it based on what could be pushed from a mainstream perspective there. So that is another. So that's what we're looking at is this ban on TikTok maybe a way to curb some of the information that they want you to have that maybe a Zuckerberg is all too happy to promote, whereas a TikTok is maybe not on that same narrative. And
Yeah.
and I think
Let,
if we
let's get into that for a second with Zuckerberg and the Meta and X and TikTok in general. Like so, with a Zuckerberg, he gives millions of dollars to lobby the U.S. government. Like how many? Let's. I recently just saw a reel. It was on Meta, if you can believe it, but it was basically saying that I would say 75% of, and I'll look up the number, but let's just say 75% for argument's sake of the Congress have like got donations from Meta, and I will Google that after and come back with that number, but it's really is pay to play at this point, so that's kind of the other thing um that we're kind of seeing is that they he's donated to these. It's corporate competition as well. Like he's sniping TikTok because he wants to be the information source, and and so
and also X before it was purchased by Elon Musk, the Twitter and Facebook, just from what we've seen with a lot of the coverage with the voting, voter fraud information, vaccine information, the masking information, the COVID, and all that. And I don't want to go too down that far rabbit hole there, as I want to talk more about Ukraine and Israel in this regard there. But even with that, there was a lot of information that certain we've talked about it. There's two sides to it. The science isn't
right.
quite settled yet. Yeah, we can say do this, do that to stay safe, but then there's other point of view saying, well, actually, if you wear a mask all day, that's not good for you either. So, um, or the need for several vaccinations if you've already have your natural immunities and things like that. But a lot of that information was something where was heavily promoted to push a certain agenda. Get 100 vaccines and anything else contrary to that was pushed as anti-information pushed by wild anti-vaxxers when a lot of those people were like, well, actually, I'm a master's degree in this and this is my field. So why would you say that? And but just long story short, that whole thing we were talking about, the freedom of speech, being able to be presented different sides of information, say, okay, based on my beliefs or based on the information I'm seeing, I'm going to lean this direction, was very heavily one sided off the Facebook Meta Twitter verse of just the last few years here. And now we're in a place where we have these two big conflicts going on. We have the Ukraine war with Russia. We have the Israel conflict with Palestine. And from what we know, I mean, war, it's propaganda. That's just par for the course here. But now there's not just a single source of information where they may be on the same sort of you know, wavelength there, the same sort of rhetoric as far as, what the official narrative being pushed are. Now you have these talking heads, these influencers who are now taking this information, taking different viewpoints that they're seeing and then running with it. And sometimes and that's what we're going to talk about, the misinformation that's being given out there. And And are TikTokers being lied to promote false agendas, or is that thing that's said that's false actually the truth? And I think that's the heart of what we're going to discuss.
Or is it both? Or, and a lot of,
Right.
and then a lot of these influencers, they were journalists that were disenfranchised by the system of, I mean, I know I worked in news and I was disenfranchised by it for I worked in news as a producer for 4 years. Yeah, 4 years altogether, associate producer and producer. And I was disenfranchised by it. I mean, when you're just being told to write at a fifth grade level, because the people watching won't understand. I mean, these are conversations that were had, right? Um, you're being told to dumb down the news. You're being told to just take what's on the wire and regurgitate it to your market. That famous you know uh, TikTok and reel of all the different news company the news stations like, oh, we're an independent news company, and then they just kind of
Oh, they're all
repeat,
say the same.
yeah, they all just
100
repeat
agencies saying the exact
the
same
exact
verbatim.
verbatim
Yeah,
thing by they're owned by whatever Viacom or whoever whatever company owns you
it's
know
all a
that
handful
half
of
of the media. They're all owned by BlackRock, and it doesn't matter. So it doesn't. It's just. But anyway, I digress. But anyway, a lot of these reporters are coming up, and they're actually doing journalistic reporting. Where it's just like, hey, this is what's happening, and there's not a narrative to it. And this is what I've seen. I mean, I guess it's choose your own. It's 100% choose your own adventure with the algorithm, right? But uh, people are able to discern information at a much larger scale without the fucking, you know, I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Um, yeah, the patriotic twist on why we should be doing this, and America's number one, and we're the last 4 years have been great, and don't change your driver mid race. It's let Biden do his thing, or Trump's the man, or it's just, hey, this is what they're all pieces of shit, and that's a consensus that we're kind of seeing is like some of these like
yeah.
reporters are just like, yeah, this is I call bullshit on all of them, which is great. You know, I don't think that's misinformation personally, but yes, let's get into it.
Let's get into it. And one thing I think we're gonna see here, and I have a few topics I want to bring up here. Something we hit on a conspiracy show where we talk about the paranormal and monsters and political, counterintelligence and all that stuff there is what is truth that in this world where you can literally find whatever you're looking for. If you have I'm starting here, but I would think I'm going to believe this at the end. You can find that choose your own adventure to get yourself there. And even this stuff that we're going to talk about, misinformation, it's still very much, I guess, up in the air where if it's like, what do you want to believe? We're
Right.
going to talk about the Israel, the rape allegations, the just denial of certain things on both sides, which are still like I think it's very hard. And then the whole messaging is behind this is about the kids. Are the kids going to be able to discern the truth from TikTok, who's promoting certain things? I don't think we can
Yeah.
as adults with the news and all of that. And I don't. So let's get into it here. But here's one thing I wanted to talk about as far as bringing it back to the pro Palestinian leanings that seem to be on TikTok and as far as the kids go that are very much leaning toward that way. Rallies we saw here. Um, so they're saying that pro Palestinian hashtags on TikTok have more reach than 10 top mainstream news sites from across the political spectrum combined. Um, they're saying that there are 54 views of videos with every pro for every 54 views for a pro-Palestinian video, there's one view of a TikTok video with a pro-Palestine hashtag there. So
Pro Israel, you mean in
yes,
comparison? Okay,
pro-Israel. Yes, yes. Thank you for that correction there.
no problem.
So free Palestine, it trends higher, to the 50 times higher than a pro-Israel hashtag. So just as far as the information, we can debate both sides. Some people could say, "Oh, it's anti-Semitic and this and that," or the people who are pushing will say, "Well, we're not that we're anti-Semitic. We're just pushing the truth that we've seen on the Palestine side that's not being talked about, perhaps." Um, what we've seen from these conflicts here, we can talk Israel, Ukraine. We very much have seen things promoted as fake conspiracy theories here, and things that are debunked or flagged or what have you.
Sure.
Eh,
Let's get into those.
yeah.
What are some of those?
How about the mass rape propaganda, which I think is still debated to this day here? And
So you give everyone a little backstory on that.
yeah, so after that invasion,
The Hamas.
the Hamas at the musical festival, there were some videos circulating online of basically women, but a lot of young people who were kidnapped, and even to this day, there's still hostages. The whole debate of free the hostages. So there's been these two sides put out there. We've seen the video. It looks bad. It looks like you know like they're hostages. There's not really a good way to spin it. But what has come about this is this idea that there was a mass rape of these
Israeli
kidnapped
women.
Israeli women and women who from that, and this information that was pushed, by like New York Times and other places, that this is out there, that there's all these reports of all the things that they're doing there, the savages, all that kind of stuff there. The flip side was there wasn't really exact evidence for it, and some people were coming out in defense of it, saying you're just trying to slander these people as savages. It is war, but as the as the attack started escalating from the Israel to the Palestine side, hospitals being attacked, children being starved, a lot of dead children. It seemed that this is one way of saying, hey, well, look what they did to our women. This is what they deserve there. But there was some sort of backtracking on that there wasn't evidence to point that out there. But people on the pro-Israel side were very much of the, well, why wouldn't there be? Just because you don't see the evidence, because the women are kidnapped or dead, to be able to say this happened to me. But if we look at the kind of people doing it, they're Muslim who are very anti-women. Look at the video footage we've seen of the women being taken. So is it that much of a leap to say that these are happening? So that's kind of where we have that. And we've seen on both sides where you're using like your some information to make a leap into something, but this is
Exactly.
very much
Yeah.
so. So where are we at today as far as have the rapes happened or are they fake? And one's on one, yeah, on one big side, there's no evidence of this happening.
Sure.
Another side, it's very. So I think where we're from now, if you're very pro-Palestine or pro-Israel, you can go through 100 articles to say one or the other. You're still going to walk out of it with these aren't happening. This is the Israel trying to justify that, or this is very much happening. How dare pro-Palestine people act like our women are not being subjected to these horrible atrocities by these Hamas.
I mean, it seems like it's a gray, and I hate to even say that about something so seriously profound as you know uh war and sexual assault and all that stuff, but it's I'm sure it happened. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I don't to the extent of how much it happened. Don't even get me started on you know talk about 9/11, like letting the Trojan horse in. There's accusations that that they knew Hamas was going to do this, and they just let it happen so that they could wage their war on the Palestinians. You know what I mean? So, and let's make a distinction right now. Hamas and the Palestinians are separate things. Hamas is a separate group. But yeah, I mean, it's just I don't know. But also a little, I'll save it for the end. But I think the reason why a lot of young Americans are anti, I guess, Israel or not, or pro Palestine, whatever you want to call it, is because Israel is, you know, in bed with the United States and they don't trust the United States. So why are they going to trust a team that the United States is rooting for. You know what I mean? And that's, I think, where a lot of the disparaging comments come from with Ukraine. Like, yeah, we might actually need to help these people, but also like, what are you guys, doing? I don't know. There's a lot to this. It's very nuanced. So yeah, your perception is your reality. It's nothing's going to change. You know what I mean? If you're pro Palestine, of course they didn't happen, and if you're pro Israel, of course they did happen. That's kind of what
Yeah,
I'm seeing.
yeah. I mean, along with that, there was also the claims of 40 beheaded babies. Even Biden chimed in on this information here, so it's something that was, I guess, there were some photos that were sent out there, and there were people reporting that they saw the photos that Hamas had, you know, basically got to a hospital and was killing babies left and right. Biden had said in a I'm trying to find that he, a quote from him. I never really thought I would see and have confirmed pictures of terrorists beheading children. And I guess with all of that, people were saying, okay, you're saying that there's all these dead babies that in a way to escalate to show Hamas in the most negative of light, that they're but a bunch of baby butchers. This was not something that was able to be confirmed there as far as who as to these photos actually existing. It now seems to have come from someone saying that they saw these photos, and then that quote being taken for gospel that okay,
Yeah,
but then it goes back to that whole as tensions are escalating and you're killing, thousands of children, and you're saying, oh well, they beheaded our babies.
right.
Okay, it seems more like it could be propaganda to justify that. It also um, brings a call back to the Iraqi war. I wasn't prepared to talk about this, but there was the Iraq war baby in what are those little when you're like a premature baby and you need to be to
Oh,
be
like the incubators.
incubator. Yes.
But
So this was
this happened in what time around?
1990.
Okay.
Naiharaiha. So this as we were talking about the Iraq war, the first Iraq war with George
Eight.
H.W.
Mhm.
W. Not or J. Yeah, George Herbert Walker Bush, not George W. Um, this woman had testified to U.S. Congress in order to basically get the government to authorize war against them. Said that she had saw Saddam Hussein's forces, his soldiers, come into this hospital, with weapons, and that they took all of these babies that were in incubators and just took them and left them on the floor, and that all the babies died. And people were like, "Holy crap, that's pretty horrible! Like how you can do this to your own people, you piece of crap. Let's definitely
Right.
go to war against them."
And it never happened.
Later found out no, she was lying. She was man, it's been a while since I've talked about this, but she was a daughter of someone. Um, oh man, I'm trying to remember her fake ass testimony. Yeah, I can't find it right now. But basically, she was a daughter of someone who benefited off of us going to war, and it was just lies. It was just propaganda to get us to rally up
Yeah.
around the flag to go to war, but it never happened. So this
Well,
is
let's talk about that. Like 1990, you have maybe five maybe news sources. Cable news wasn't a thing. Everyone trusted the networks. You know what I'm saying? So of course they're going to take for granted. And then yeah, you can come back and say, "Oh, this wasn't true," for the record. You know, but most of the people, the damage is done. You know what I mean?
you're
So
already in a war. It's like
you're already in a war,
we've seen it so many times where it's like,
right?
oh, with Afghanistan and all that, like, okay, there was no
Or even
weapons.
this with George, yeah, with George W. Bush with weapons of mass destruction.
Right.
It was just like, well,
We're already in
what
war now. We can't turn back and
Yeah,
just
well,
stop.
we already
We gotta
started,
just
right?
yep.
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, there's something up with Israel in general, dude. Like, if I'm being honest with you, and I don't, dude.
So
Hamas and Israel and the Palestinians. I know this right now. They've won the fucking war. I mean, they have the majority of the Palestinians are like, it's not the Gaza Strip anymore. It's like the Gaza like neighborhood. They won the war. They're it's overkill, and not what's his Benjamin, not who, how do you say his name?
Uh,
I always have a hard time with it. It's like
it's
my aluminum. I know, but you know who I'm talking about.
Netanyahu, yeah, Benjamin
Yeah,
Netanyahu.
yeah. So thank you. You're just gonna say his name from I can't pronounce it. I sound so ignorant, but we all know who I'm talking about. Has come out and said that he was not going to. This is not the end game is that they eradicate these people, which is
Right, and
yeah,
he said that since, and he said that right before. So there was 2 weeks prior to the raids into Israel, which kickstarted this whole new conflict. He had given a speech at in the United States headquarters in New York City, where he showed a map of what would be the new Middle East, where he depicts the state of Israel that stretches from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, and the Gaza and West Bank were erased. The Palestinians were no longer
yeah,
in our existence here. So he was very much. So that's another thing that has come back where
yeah.
where some people have even insinuated that the attack was false flag, perhaps that it was
Oh,
orchestrated by
that's
some
I mean,
people,
yeah, dude,
which is big on TikTok, right?
yeah,
Because you can't really say that on
it's
other
huge on TikTok, and it makes I mean, honestly, and I'm a product of TikTok maybe, but no, it just makes sense, man. I mean, really, I mean, he's coming out 2 weeks before. I mean,
right.
and when there's smoke, there's fire, and I guess, and you famously say, it's kind of ironic that the second that you have a platform and it's bleeding even into like the meta and the reels and all that stuff. But you have this platform that is you're saying 50 times more pro Palestine.
Mhm.
Like people, I don't know, man, are calling kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
Like why are we giving all this money to Israel? Why are we giving all this money to Ukraine? Like it doesn't make sense. Republican, Democrat, whatever you want to call yourself. I've talked to both and everyone. That's the thing. Everyone, that's the scary part for the government. Everyone on both sides of it are like, why the fuck are we giving money to Israel and supporting this bullshit?
Right.
And why are we giving money to Ukraine and supporting this bullshit? It doesn't matter. It's every across the board. Everyone I know, left or right, they're all the same, you know, voice.
Yeah. And now Netanyahu, now I can't say the
No,
words,
you can't.
Netanyahu. Um,
Benjamin Netanyahu.
yeah,
I can say it. There you go.
wait, okay,
You
I
switch.
gave it
Yeah.
to you, you gave it to me, okay,
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. We'll volley it back and forth. Okay.
gotcha. Um, that him basically making that sort of prediction about Palestine being wiped off the map
Were those
right
air
before the
quotes?
war. Huh?
Did I see air quotes prediction? I'm just
Air
playing. Yeah, there was
air
an air quote prediction, making that prediction.
yeah.
No, I'm playing. Go ahead.
But it's brought callbacks to 9/11
Yeah,
where
100%, dude.
during Bush's administration, they had released this big document called the uh, Project of New America, where they outlined basically what happened, where they were saying that they believe that there's going to be some sort of big terrorist attack, which will be a pretext
Right.
for this big war, and that will be in basically the future of war is that we're never going to not be in a war because it's not just against country; it's a war against an ideology. And then with what happened with the Patriot Act, they already had this plan right before this all happened, which sometimes will lead people to think that okay, were they just waiting for this to happen, or was it intentional? Did they
Yeah,
create their own
it was
boogeyman?
premeditated, yeah, right.
Yeah, and that's where the TikTok you're able to have those conspiracy theorists who are able to make those connections and say, hey, like
Yeah.
exactly like you said, is there smoke? There's fire, or I guess like I
Well,
say,
so yeah, but I mean, so conspiracy theorist is becoming not really having the negative connotation as it once had. And this is recently actually since we started the show, like I've seen like a switch like turn in the community where it's not hey, this is your conspiracy podcast. And then they're just stating facts. And it's because we have the internet, and it's because we have open, forums on TikTok and stuff like that where people can share information where they're just reciting like stuff like the Iraq war, like, hey, this is what happened, this is the timeline, this is what he said, this is what happened. Then we went here, then we went to Afghanistan, then we did this, then we pulled out, then there was not weapons of mass destruction, then there was this, and so it was, you see the breakdown of and the you know the disbursement of information in, short. I guess media makes it kind of like harder to, you know what I mean? They make it hard for the people. You have to like kind of find the contra, if you will. Whereas like there are people on TikTok that were like, oh, their whole page is dedicated to like, this is what was said. This is the timeline. This is where it was said. This is what happened. This is in response to that. And they just go chronologically down the thing. So why would the government that is, trying to keep the masses kind of asleep, in my opinion, why would they want something out there like that? You know what I mean? And why would they want something that they basically can't really control? I mean, they can go to Zuckerberg and be like, "Hey, man, like, we're really," and you saw it. You kind of saw it with Twitter, and you kind of saw it with. And I'm not getting political and with the COVID shit, and I'm not. Me and you kind of differ on ideologies with that. So, but I will say this: is they did throttle up um certain ideologies, and they did throttle down and suppress others. They did. That 100% happened, right? Um, Before Elon Musk took over. But I can make that leap that Zuckerberg is like it's already shown on Facebook that if the word Zionist it is flagged uh as racist rhetoric on Facebook. It's a fucking word. It's not
It's the movement to create a state
a state
for Israel.
for Israel. And then also it's also there's another term for it. It's an African term for Zionist as well, having to do with like Christianity and stuff like that. There's a Zionist Christian movement in Africa as well. But you can't, even if you're that, or there's the Israeli state for Judaism. That's what it is. I mean, it's the definition of their country. It's a Zionist country. I mean, this is what they self-proclaimed, you know what I mean? So now it's anti-Semitic, and now you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It
for
is
sure.
it is what it is. It's the definition of what the
Right.
country
That's
is. It's
goes back to freedom of speech. I mean, even
right.
talking about it, even trying to recognize, like forget anti-Zionism, but even trying to understand the idea and like where did this come from? Like, okay, how did this movement grow to what it is, or to
Well,
to
it
become
grew
a religious movement that became a national one as well in government?
and
But you
originally
can't even look at it. Yeah,
originally it was they wanted to have a Jewish state,
yeah. After World War II,
after World War II. I mean, it was a positive thing after the Holocaust and stuff like that. And so it's coming off of something that like it was seriously wrong, that what happened to the Jewish people. And but now it's anti-Semitic to call something what it is. Like I just don't buy into that at all. Like I think it's fucking nuts. And I think honestly, like you know, uh, it's the the warfare that's going on and the shit that you're seeing over in Israel right now. And maybe this is my TikTok influence or whatever, but I think a lot of that stuff is just like people are just like, well, this is bullshit. You know what I mean? Like this is they're
mm,
they're doing shit that's fucking you know uh, atrocious. You know what I mean? I mean, war is ugly, but now it's being reflected at you 24/7 in the palm of your hand. You know what I mean? So I guess the winners of the war are always going to be the bad guys, right? And but also is there some truth to w- you know the atrocities that are happening, from Israel? But now we can't talk about that. We can't talk about the atrocities that are coming out from Israeli, soldiers and stuff like that. And I mean, it's it's comical how much more um, you know advanced when it comes to warfare that Israel is in comparison to Palestine. Like it's like bringing like a slingshot to a grenade launcher fight. It's ridiculous. And
yeah.
so it's like I kind of err on the side of the underdog always. So it's not me for me. It's not really TikTok. It's just like, well, of course. I mean, like, yeah, it's like the United States like going over to like, you know, uh I don't even know, like New Zealand, and and circling the island with all their warships, and be like, hey, like what are you gonna do? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a non. It's like a non. Like New Zealand's just a bad example. I mean, I know we're allies or whatever, but you know what I'm saying? Like some small island country, and the United States is like, oh hey, we're at
Laos.
war. Yeah, like hey, let's go. What's up? We're at war. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, your hands are up. It doesn't matter. We're gonna fucking nut tap you. Here you go. Take it. You know, it's just kind of. I don't know. I'm getting off topic here, but it's just I just don't. I always side with the underdog, dude. I can't help it.
And speaking of conspiracy theories, I mean, with these articles, and we're seeing it on both sides here. y- on sort of the conspiracy minded, when I like to say conspiracy theory when it's something that's sort of not in the mainstream, or just proposing other ideas here. And sometimes you'll see these like logical leaps being taken, like, all right, well, if we've seen this before and this is what we're seeing, then maybe this is what's happening, right? And then the mainstream, of course, would be like, well, that's a conspiracy way of thinking, that's a QAnon way. They'll throw words like that, this is MAGA thinking and things like that in it. But we've seen it being done on their side, even on this new, like, this rape denialism idea, where they're like, well, there may not be evidence for it, but if there's this and there's that, then logically, let's make some leaps of faith there. So it seems that the leaps of faith are needed when it's pushing the idea that you're trying to put out there. But one thing I want to talk about with that sort of leap of information is Ukraine and this whole Ukrainian biolab conspiracy, if
Okay,
that's
let's hear it.
going on. So with that, I've subscribed to this idea because I've seen the person who said that this is happening there, but it's still something to this day that's considered a debunked conspiracy theory. I guess, you'll hear the maybe liberal idea say this is some sort of MAGA. Again, the MAGA, what's QAnon conspiracy here. And Russia too has also come out and said that one of the reasons why they're coming after Ukraine is because they have these biological weapons labs that they feel can be a danger to them and or the world. So that's why they're stopping it. But that they're saying this isn't happening here. So yeah, you can look up information here how like QAnon conspiracy theory about Ukrainian bioweapons became mainstream disinformation. So basically, the official story from our U.S. government is that there's zero basis in bioweapons or any kind of research at all. That this is all Soviet propaganda, as they would say, because we're Soviets. Everything they say is Soviet propaganda, according to American. There, that it's not provable. There's no anything there. I guess there were some tweets that were sent out from some Twitter, research conspiracy theorists, basically depicting a map of Ukraine and saying that these are all U.S. biolabs in Ukraine and that they have just found out about it, and that coincided with Russia also coming out saying that this is a reason for it. It has been connected to indirectly, some have speculated that Russia and China were blaming the U.S. for the COVID-19 outbreak, and that they may have originated in these bio weapons labs in the Ukraine. Now,
So,
so it's
so it's not Wuhan. It's happening in Ukraine. They're saying.
yeah, well, not basically just ideologies being sprung up, conspiracy
Right.
theories from that side that this is what may be going on there and that there may be some truth to that and all of that stuff there. But basically, US is saying that didn't happen at all. Uh, Tucker Carlson actually came out and was saying that the Ukraine was caught lying about this. And I'll also, because this is where I got mine, not from Tucker, but from the person he cites, where I saw that, I was like, okay, well, they clearly have bioweapons labs. Why are we still discussing it at this point? Um, so he came out. I have some transcripts from Tucker. He basically said, "Hey, if you told us 4 days ago, and this was back in uh, March of 2022, if you had just told us 4 days ago that the Biden administration was funding secret biolabs in Ukraine of all places, we would not have believed you. That yes, we would not put that on TV. So no thanks." Um, that if you would have told us that not only did the admin fund the secret biolabs in Ukraine, but they failed to secure the deadly contents of those labs before the Russian invasion, an invasion they helped encourage, then we would have dismissed you as a nut, which is too preposterous, and we don't want anything to do with that story. But because we had known that this story was false. How do we know that? Because we read USA Today's American newspaper that basically was a rebuttal to all those crazies who were talking about this Ukrainian biolab. So they were saying that the USA Today had already talked about it and it had dismissed it all as fact. So we did too, basically Fox News and Tucker here. So then they looked deeper into it. They were saying that the fact checkers were sourced to Ukrainian government unnamed officials and Biden's own State Department. So they had realized that it wasn't exactly the most subjective on there. So they decided to look further. Um, yeah, they had assumed that I guess Foreign Policy magazine also said that this is all lie, fabricated by QAnon. So they had said that we're not going to do a story on that based on all of this information. But now, and this is where I saw her testimony. Victor Nuland is now Joe Biden's secretary of state in charge of Ukraine, and she knows a lot about Ukraine. In 2014, she helped engineer the coup in Ukraine in the name of democracy, so she's highly informed about that source. So, yeah, I know a little bit about that too. So she was having a talk with Senator Marco Rubio of Florida during her testimony. This is what I saw, where I'm like, well, there's biolabs, where he had asked Nuland if Ukraine had biological weapons, and then Tucker was like, "We never imagined that they did. Why would they have bioweapons?" Um, so he's like, "That was a pretty strange question. It wasn't quite as shocking as her answer." So she says, after he asked her the question, "You Victoria Nuland, U.S. Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs, had this to say: Ukraine has biological research facilities. While in fact we are now quite concerned about Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we are working with Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach." So Tucker then said, "Okay, so do they have weapons?" It seems like they do, even though they keep saying they don't, because Victoria Nuland, who works in Ukraine for Biden, is saying that they do, and they're concerned that this will fall into the wrong hands here. Um, so this is the information that I saw and was like, okay, like there's something to these things I'm seeing on Twitter or the conspiracy feed about that. What was interesting here, and I'm not going to read this whole article, basically going on the back and forth, was the let me see here. Because here's another article. After months of denial, U.S. admits running Ukraine biological labs. Um, so they had basically this other article from People's World also said, hey, after all this back and forth, that they have now confirmed that there's 46 biolabs in Ukraine, and it's Victoria Nuland has come out and said it, on the stand here. So clearly we have that. Um, the one thing that states in this article is that United States has been accused of engaging in biological warfare in the past. Late Cuban leader Fidel Castro claimed that its operatives had introduced swine fever and dengue fever into the country with a previously unknown strain of the latter created in a laboratory. The aim was to create the largest number of victims possible, he said. Um, Former Daily Worker International correspondent Alan Winnington and Australian journalist Wilfred Burchett were accused of treason and had their passports canceled after exposed in the U.S. biological war in Korea in the 1950s. So what they're saying here is that the U.S. has been caught engaging in some dirty biological war tactics, and that when Russia is insinuating that they're worried about these biological labs in Ukraine because they're under the control of U.S., that they're worried that they're dealing in dirty deeds, basically, because they've been doing dirty deeds. So I just wanted my last thing before I know you want to speak up here. So this article was saying that, hey, now it's come up that it's actually true. There's an editor's note. So this was posted in June of 2022. Editor's note, August 24, 2023. And I want to read this because they're now having to make a clarification on what the truth actually is. And I think
Let's hear it.
let's hear it. This article contains partial information which may lead readers to conclude that a U.S. Department of Defense admitted to operating biological weapons laboratories, biolabs, inside Ukraine. What the U.S. government confirmed was the funding/operation of biological laboratories researching certain diseases and pathogens in Ukraine. The Russian government has long claimed that these labs were also conducting or could in the future conduct research and development on chemical and biological weaponry. Many QAnon and other right wing conspiracy theorists have repeated the Russian accusations. The implication of the above article is that given the U.S. long and atrocious record of conducting chemical and biological warfare in places like Korea, Cuba, and Iraq, such a possibility is not outside the realm of believability. It does not directly claim, however, that such development has occurred. It does report on demands by China, though, that the U.S. fully disclose the nature of the research it collaborated on with Ukraine. At this time, there's no confirmed evidence of chemical or biological weapons research being carried out at the labs in question.
Yeah, but that's I mean, like, honestly, it sounds like, yeah, hey, we have biological labs. Um, the reason why they're making these claims because America's got caught with their pants down in the past, multiple times on this. Um, technically, the United States hasn't come out and admitted to it, but they have admitted funding for these labs.
Right, right, right.
Okay, so I'm not incorrect in what I just heard you read.
Well, no, you're
So
supposed to walk away from it confused as hell. It's
right,
like I'm on one side we're saying that they have bio weapons labs, but we actually they don't.
they're
They
not
just
the-
have
they're not
bio
the-
labs, which could be dangerous, but not necessarily weapons that we've admitted to.
they're not U.S. labs, but they're funded by the U.S.
Yeah.
Right,
And
exactly.
if you're making the logical leap that we can use this biological research to conduct,
Right.
dirty chemical attacks on people, there's no reason to think that just because we've done it several times before in other countries.
But also, it's not out of the realm of possibility that it could happen, considering the United States' past history. Is what I heard.
Right. So
Right. So
so that's what I'm saying. This is where we're at with
right.
misinformation with anything you see is that I mean, I understand why the kids are confused because based on
Are
information,
they
right?
are they even confused? Like their natural.
Wait, are they
So are they right? Because their natural instinct is like these motherfuckers, our government, have lied to us so much, and this is who they're backing. Well, we're gonna go with the other guys because fuck this. You know what I mean? Like we're tired of it. You know?
I just want to say this last quote here.
Yeah.
Going in the back and forth. So during her testimony, Victoria Newland said that we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. Uh, so Ukraine has biological research facilities, which in fact we're now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we're working with Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach. So basically they're not admitting to them being actual weapons labs, but they're whatever they're working on is so dangerous they don't want that in the hands of
Right.
our enemies or exploded. So it can then say, well, if we're using our logical leap here, maybe they are bioweapons labs. But
Right. Right.
so yes, just one of those things where perception is reality. So and because even with this information, because I've seen her talk about it. So to me, it's like, okay, well, this is one of the reasons why the Russia Ukraine stuff is happening. And then I know if I'll bring it up to people, a lot of people don't know about that. So they'll challenge you. You're lying. That's that Russian propaganda. It's like, well, I didn't hear it from a Russian. I heard it from a lady who works in Ukraine at a biolab under Biden. So I
Right.
don't know. It's QAnon. So it's easy to hear a lot of those labels being thrown at you all the time as a conspiracy, as a working hard 9 to 5 conspiracy theorist. But
Yeah.
man, it's there's so much information now that yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and
like you get,
you assume that we have a political leaning here. Yeah, I think out of all of our friends, we're just like fucking both of them. You know what I mean? Like, but
yeah.
obviously, you are a MAGA guy.
I'm not, but I get labeled that all the time. I'm glad you labeled me that because if I bring any information counter to something, oh, did you get that from QAnon? Like, I don't know what that is as far as like, is that QAnon.com? I don't get my news from QAnon.com or the
Right,
QAnon tweet channel. I don't know. So I'm going
right.
to say no,
Well,
but
I mean,
but it's a
you,
popular way to shit on
you,
someone's.
yeah, you are on X, so I mean, that is kind of like the QAnon. Like,
But I subscribe to the
yeah,
extreme left and right. I want to know what they're both.
no, I know. I'm kidding. Obviously, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But no, dude, it's crazy. I mean, so getting like so all of that would piss off our government, right? If they have interests in these zones of interest, right? that would piss them off, right? They want people just to go with the flow of what they want to get done. So that's one reason why they're, wanting to ban TikTok, right? So another reason is because all of these politicians are being put on fucking blast, dude. Like their stock trades, everything, their business, they're every single one of them, left, right, Democrat, Republican, Independent, everyone of them. I mean, they have basically sites now where you can follow Nancy Pelosi's stock trades and you can match her trades. Like if you go to what's the Robinhood, right? This is come up through TikTok. You can set your trades to Nancy Pelosi's trades, and if you do that, in the last I would say 4 months, people that have done it had made a 15% increase on their money just because of just following her insider trading shit.
I would do
And
that. That's like, yeah, insider trading.
yeah, so you got a lot of people that are, clips that would be thrown to the wayside by the mainstream media are now making the rounds with millions of views and then reshared and another millions of views of Nancy Pelosi being put on the spot where she's like, "Well, do you think it's fair that, you're on all these committees and subcommittees that talk about, finance and what corporations are doing and the state of the economy and you get information before it's released to the public and you can make trades in there and she's like well oh we don't do that but she's worth 126 million and she's made 25 million in the last year. And let's talk about Obama for a second. Just to keep it fair, I know people think that I'm a raging fucking liberal just like they think you're a MAGA guy, but
Who thinks that besides you?
I don't know. Our friends, I know John knows fucking with you. It's calling you Maggie dude. And I don't think no, I don't think you are. I really don't. I know I tease you. But yeah, I mean, I think we both um have a different have different views on certain things, but I think most of the time we're pretty much on par with our beliefs and we
Yeah.
just think it's bullshit. But Obama, I'm saying that like I know down here in Texas people think I'm a bleeding heart liberal. But he's the one that actually signed this bullshit into place where, like, congressional members of Congress, I'm sorry, the congressional Congress senators or House representatives can both basically insider trade, and they're taking full advantage of it. Every single one of them, And I did look up while you were talking. It looks you can go to a certain. It's called sludge politics.com, I think. Let me just take a look. You can see every single member of Congress that has traded in Facebook or Meta, and it breaks it down for you to show who owns millions of Facebook and stock, and it's readsludge.com, and it breaks it down for you. But you know, a lot of these congressmen, they own stock in Microsoft or they own stock in Google or they own stock in Meta. And all of these are trying to compete with TikTok, which is the emerging most popular platform. And the ironic part is that they're saying it's a China based company. It's really not like, yeah, the Byte Dance or Dance Byte or whatever the fuck the parent company owns a subsidiary, but all the servers are in Texas, man. Like all these jobs that are going to be lost if this ban happens is going to be fucking ruthless, dude. There's going to not just TikTok, but like all these independent, entrepreneurial people that have TikTok shops and have, I just opened up a TikTok shop, and I'm just kind of was getting started with it. And now I'm just like hesitant to even invest my time into it because it's could just fold in the next 6 months. I've decided I'm just going to go full throttle with it, but it's just, I mean, it's personally affecting me. It was what other place can you go on and you know what I'm saying and like make it's I don't know. They want to talk about how they're protecting our data. Well, let's start with protecting our data, right? Let's start with protecting it from Meta. Let's talk about protecting it from Google, the cable companies that own our routers and our Wi-Fi. I mean, they have every single piece of data that you ever download. It doesn't matter if you're in incognito mode, or it doesn't matter if you have privacy settings on there. Like, if you don't have what is that called, where you reroute your IP address? Yeah,
VPN.
yeah, VP, if you don't have a VPN, they have all of your information. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like it. And I'm if I'm being honest with you, I'm more concerned with the corporation. Let's talk about corporate. You know,
Corporate
having
media, the
yeah,
sponsorships of the
right,
pharmaceutical companies on yeah, every
yeah,
news agency.
right. It just sounds like they want more control over what it is. And I don't think that there's, I mean, the algorithm, I've never seen anything anti American on my algorithm. You know what I mean? And like, they're like, oh, these people are, uh, liberal plants, or they're conservative plants. You see it like all the time on, it's just like, you guys are all, it's choose your own adventure, man. It's an echo chamber of what you want. So just, I don't know. My shit's all fucking positive, and I see some conspiracy theories on our conspiracy theory TikTok. We just go follow it, but at the theory of conspiracy. But I mean, other than that, like, my personal one is just Brazilian jiu-jitsu videos and funny shit. You know what I mean? So like, what does it fucking matter if oh, they know that I like Brazilian jiu-jitsu? Cool. Like, I don't understand. And I think it's an attack on free speech. I think it's an attack on our right to view and listen to what we want to listen to. It's definitely trying to control the narrative, like 100%. You can't convince me anything other than that. And I just think it's bullshit. And I think all the stuff that we talked about is the catalyst for it. They don't have control over you know, what they want us to believe, and it doesn't align with what they want us to believe, and so they're gonna stop it. And that's what I think. What do you think?
Do you think they'll be successful in stopping it? Can you put
I
the genie back in the bottle?
No, there's no way that that's happening, because you're already seeing it. Like, you're seeing the TikTok ban stuff like bleed over into the reels, and there's outrage on reels about it as well. There's too many people to censor simultaneously, and honestly, the genie, if they want to really let the genie out of the bottle, and they don't want a passive, docile, which I don't get. Like, let people fucking scream it. If you want control, and this is getting into some seriously conspiracy theory shit here, but if you want control, let people scream into the void in their little black boxes and do that. Now, once you take away that, what is deemed or what they feel is their outlet, which it really isn't, right? It's like, hey, pro Palestine. Hey, look at this solar charger panel that you can buy. It's just this. It's the same corporate bullshit over and over and over. It's just a different spin on it. But you're going to have a lot of people that are just like, well, my voice was taken away. Now, fuck you. You know what I mean? So they're really kind of, I think they're trying to like cut off a head, the snake, and there's just going to be that that grow back in that place. It's just, if they are successful, they're going to shoot themselves in the foot. It's going to cause an uproar. There's going to be, and with the blockchain coming out, the technology is there, where it's just like, you can use that technology to have an open forum, and it's kind of like you have your passcode, like for your digital currency wallet or whatever, and then at that point they can't do shit. So I mean, you can allow TikTok to happen and give people the illusion of having like a voice, and like, whatever. And yeah, some shit might go viral and might make a change and might be uncomfortable for the Congress. But if you stop that, and you stop that voice, like, it's fucking done. Like, they are gonna hit a domino, and they are gonna fuck themselves up. I'm talking, and I hope they do. I mean, like, all jokes aside, like, I hope they fucking blow it up, because then it might actually wake some people up to, like, hey, well, yeah, like, I can't, like, it seems silly that like a a thing that was once considered a child's application for, like, lip syncing and dancing, is now that was never on their fucking radar. They didn't give a shit if your data was being mined. They didn't give a shit about it, and now it's an interest to the U.S. government. and
Right.
they want to shut it down. Well, if it wasn't detrimental to what their agenda was, they wouldn't give a fuck about it. But it's going against what they are saying. So now they're upset about it and now they're going to shut it down. So I think it's bullshit. But what are your thoughts?
I think as far as being able to shut it down, I think, yeah, the genie's out of the bottle. I mean, one thing we've seen with the youth, and it's actually one of the things that I'm most optimistic about
Yeah, I admire it, dude. I know what
is
you're
are
talking.
these young kids yeah, having that conspiracy mind that we have where we look at something officially and say, it seems like I'm missing something. And then you look at other stuff and other alternate points and say, hey, I don't know which one's true here, but I have more information now than just the
Right.
official Fed stuff. And maybe I believe something differently there. And so I welcome that there's that mentality there. I mean, talking to my son, like sometimes I give the youth shit, like, oh man, these kids can't even walk into a restaurant and order for themselves because they don't know how to interact with people. But then, like my son, he was just the other day, we were talking about well, a lot of stuff actually. He's pretty smart on a lot of things that he's getting educated on. But we are talking about like Victor Salva, the director of Jeepers Creepers,
Yeah.
and he was like basically telling his mom about the whole like the child like the allegations he or well charges like with the child from the first movie. He called it Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and I was like, oh well, you got that wrong. It's actually Clown House. But I
Yeah.
don't want to go into that whole thing. But it was just something where he was like, he knew the story, he knew the sort of the reputation behind it, the fact you can't find that movie anymore because of the what he was doing with the child star up there. But just that on top of like dozens of weird stories where I'm like, man, this kid, he's like me. He doesn't know shit about his own life, but he can tell you some weird factual stuff from history. So
Right.
I think with people being inquisitive, the youth looking into the dark side of things, looking into alternate theories, I think even with TikTok going away, that drive will still be there. So even if that means we got to bring books back and share
Right.
information that way or messages through pigeon carriers, I don't know. I just don't think I think I think there's that need in humans and that's why we're conspiracy theorists because we don't quite believe what's being told to us. And even when people will say, "No, you're just conspiracy theorists," all that,
MAGA.
yeah, the labels, especially the stuff I get, I'm like, well, you know what? I will keep doing my research. I'll keep looking into stuff, and in time, perhaps I'll be shown that I was more right than you with
Yeah.
your labels and all that. So I don't know. I think the youth will
Well,
be
even
fine.
from this show, I mean, like if we look at some of the earlier episodes, like people are just like, "Oh, that's real." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm this like we say conspiracy theory because like you gotta have the kids gloves
The
on,
way to yeah, it's a way to categorize it and be safe, but
right?
right.
Yeah,
But
but
there's stuff that's like, well, oh, that's actually true now. We're just moving on. But
right, it's just it is what it is, you know.
yeah,
And I'm done explaining, you know. And that's my thing. If you guys want to listen, that's fantastic. We love you, you know. We'd love to have you here, but it's I'm done. I guess I'm done trying to convince. You know, is my thing. It's just a lot of the shit is facts, man. It's not even. It's we put it under as a news show because there's certain things we're like, okay, this is a theory, right? Like, there's no way we can fucking prove this, but there's certain things that it's considered a conspiracy because the mainstream doesn't believe in it, but we're telling you fucking facts here. Like this is not. I don't know. There's and this episode was like a sprinkle of both. We'll just put it in there because we don't have 100%, but I think everything we reported on was pretty factual, you know, and you can do the research yourself. So, I mean, is there anything else for this episode? I think we fucking kind of did all right with it.
yep.
It's a touchy subject,
We skirted around it just enough. I think
right?
so, yeah.
I don't think. I mean, people get mad at me, you know, when I say this, but I'm not pro Israel and I'm not pro Palestine. Like I'm just pro like tired of hearing about the bullshit. It's like, well, how can you say that? There's children dying. It's like that. One does not. Me saying that does not make it my fault that children are dying in Israel and in Palestine. Like it's fucking atrocious that that's happening, and I believe that it's atrocious that that's happening. All I'm saying is that they're peddling a line of fucking bullshit to us, and on both sides. If I'm being real, you know what I mean? Like there's yeah, hundreds of years. You know, like there's hundreds of years before those two people lived in peace, and now, and since World War II, it's been a fucking shit show. I would say since the 70s, since the petrodollar became a place. So who created the petrodollar? The American people. So I'm just gonna throw that out there, that maybe we're not always the good guys, but it's yeah, I'll just leave that little Easter egg for people. But look into the petrodollar, guys, and then maybe we can talk Israel and Palestine over a couple beers. But I'm not gonna do it on this show.
All right.
It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. So anyway, follow us on Instagram.
Take up on your beer money.
Yeah, that sounds good. Follow us on Instagram. We're growing. We appreciate it, guys. Follow where you listen to your podcast, especially Spotify. If you haven't done that, just go over to Spotify and hit that follow button for us. It really helps us out. Always have a healthy distrust. I know I do. But you gotta live your life, guys, and you can't. We're lucky. I talk a lot of shit. We're lucky to be in this country in the sense that a lot of other countries, we wouldn't even be able to do this show. So we got that at least. But exercise your voice, and that's why we got a little upset about the TikToks, because that's an avenue where people, a lot of people have exercised their right to say what they want, and whether you agree with it or whether it's even true or not is not the fucking point. It's that we have the right to do so. So healthy distrust, everybody. Rolando, last words as always.
Yeah, if you want to follow us, look for us in Theory of Conspiracy. If you want to follow me individually on the metas or the TikToks, look for _Lando on those sites there, since we're so social media heavy show here. And once again, everybody, stay weird and tune in next time.